we have received word that music legend Ozzy Osbourne has died. His death comes just weeks after reuniting with his Black Sabbath bandmates and performing a massive farewell concert for fans in his hometown of Birmingham, England.
He could barely stand, and his voice wasn't what it used to be. But Ozzy Osbourne delivered a final concert that left fans speechless. Behind the iconic leather, wild screams, and blazing fire stood a man fighting more than just age. He was battling pain, decline, and personal demons. This wasn't just a performance. It was a raw, emotional farewell, heavy with secrets the world never expected. Every note, every word carried the weight of a legend's final bow. Ozzy didn't just end an era, he revealed the soul behind the spectacle. This was more than music. It was a moment in history. How Ozzy cheated death again. Ozzy Osbourne was born in Birmingham, England, in 1948, into a world stacked against him. He struggled with poverty, learning difficulties, and depression before he was even old enough to dream. At just 14, he tried to take his own life. By 17, he was in prison for burglary, already spiraling in a world of chaos. But music gave him a way out, and by 1968, he co-founded Black Sabbath, a band that would create heavy metal itself. Black Sabbath exploded with success, but Ozzy's personal life fell apart behind the scenes. He developed a deep addiction to alcohol and harmful substances, which would control him for decades. He was unpredictable, wild, and eventually, even his band had enough, firing him in 1979. Most thought that was the end of Ozzy, but it was only the beginning of his solo legend. Against all odds, he came back even stronger with hit albums like Blizzard of Oz. The years that followed weren't kind to him. In 2003, he crashed an ATV and nearly died. He crushed vertebrae in his back, broke his collarbone, and punctured a lung. Doctors thought he'd never walk again, but somehow he pulled through. He faced multiple staph infections and had his hand operated on several times. Still, he kept showing up, performing, and recording when most would have retired for good. In 2019, Ozzy was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. He made the news public in 2020, admitting the condition had begun to affect everything in his life. His body was giving up, and the rock lifestyle had finally caught up with him. By this point, he had undergone over 15 surgeries, including spinal work and nerve repairs. Each one was painful, risky, and came with long recoveries. At home, things looked grim. Sharon Osbourne admitted that Ozzy's health was in constant crisis. There were blood clots, intense pain, and long hospital stays. Some surgeries left him barely able to move. His team had to cancel tours, and many believed his stage days were permanently over. Quietly, plans were being made for his possible end. But Ozzy refused to go out like that. Despite doctors' warnings, he made it his mission to perform again. 2023 was supposed to be the year he vanished from the spotlight. Instead, he turned it into his final act. Insiders say he even began funeral arrangements before changing his mind completely. Rather than die in bed, he wanted to go out doing what he loved most: performing live. The decision shocked his family and close circle. Many had accepted that his time was almost up. But Ozzy pushed through brutal pain, months of physical therapy, and multiple setbacks just to stand on stage one more time. His will to survive wasn't just about life, it was about purpose. And for Ozzy, music has always been that purpose. He was never supposed to last this long. With the amount of harmful substances, accidents, and health scares, Most people wouldn't survive half of what he's been through. Yet here he was, decades past his prime, still standing, and not just surviving, but commanding a crowd in what would become his last, unforgettable show. Ozzy's final concert wasn't just a performance, it was a miracle in motion. What fans didn't know was how close they came to never seeing that moment at all. His team, especially Sharon, fought for months to make it happen. The planning, preparation, and health struggles were overwhelming, but Ozzy insisted. This wasn't just about music, it was about ending things on his own terms, in front of the people who made it all possible. Ozzy's final concert wasn't just music. It was rebellion against age, pain, and silence, proving legends don't fade quietly. The comeback no one saw coming. Ozzy Osbourne didn't plan on ever stepping on stage again. After canceling his UK and Europe tour in 2023, he told the world he was done performing. But behind that announcement, a quiet effort was underway. Sharon Osbourne and guitarist Tom Morello had been planning something massive, a farewell show that Ozzy never asked for but desperately needed. This wasn't about promotion or money, it was about closure and legacy. Tom Morello wasn't just another guest guitarist. He worked behind the scenes to coordinate the lineup, move artist schedules, and help secure the venue. He believed Ozzy had one final moment left and wanted to make it happen on his terms. Morello's push gave Sharon the extra backing she needed. Together, they created a support system designed to carry Ozzy through one final performance. Ozzy's mental state was unstable leading up to the show. The years of physical pain had worn down his motivation and belief in himself. Doctors warned against any exertion, and even Sharon worried it might be too much. But she spent over a year prepping every detail: physical therapists, vocal support, custom equipment, and mental coaching. This wasn't just planning a concert, it was rebuilding Ozzy for one last spotlight. Weeks before the performance, Ozzy slipped and suffered a minor injury at home. For most artists, it would have ended the comeback entirely. But the team had anticipated this. Contingency plans were built into everything, down to the sound system. A trusted technician later revealed that AI voice synthesis and backup vocals were integrated just in case Ozzy's voice gave out mid-performance. Rehearsals were brutal. Ozzy didn't rehearse standing. He used a chair and rested between songs. His energy would dip quickly, but his timing remained intact. Sharon even installed a medical-grade oxygen tent backstage to help him recover between sets. Despite the odds, he didn't miss a single practice session in the weeks leading up to the show. A surprising twist came from how the stage was built. Engineers designed a flat surface with rubberized layers to prevent slipping and reduce stress on his joints. The lighting was adjusted to hide his slower movements while still giving the dramatic effects fans expected. Every costume was altered to support comfort over flair. The entire production was rebuilt around his body's limitations. What looked effortless on stage was carefully choreographed backstage. Fans didn't know that a private ambulance with a full medical staff was parked backstage during the event. It wasn't about drama, it was about being prepared for any outcome. Even the song list was tailored to preserve Ozzy's energy. Slower songs came in between the heavier tracks to pace his breathing. This show was engineered to protect him while still honoring what made him legendary. New insight reveals that this farewell wasn't just a concert, it was a carefully timed closure. Ozzy's longtime therapist was consulted to help manage the emotional toll of preparing for what he believed was his final goodbye. Some insiders claim Ozzy recorded a post-show message to be released only if something went wrong during the performance. The message remains unreleased, a final card no one hopes to play. That's how seriously the team took the risk. Ozzy didn't agree to the show lightly, but deep down, he knew there would never be a perfect moment. The physical pain, the fear of failure, and the years of decline made the idea terrifying. But with his family's support and Morello's push, he chose legacy over silence. And that single choice turned what could have been a quiet exit into one of the boldest final acts in rock history. What really happened the night Ozzy took the stage? The venue was packed, and the energy felt electric. Thousands of fans waited, knowing this might be Ozzy's last time on stage. When he appeared, led carefully to the mic, and the noise exploded. His body looked fragile, but his eyes were sharp with purpose. Just getting to that stage was a personal victory. He wasn't wearing his trademark black gloves. It was a small detail, but fans noticed. It made him seem open and human, not the rock god they were used to. His hands were shaking, but he stood tall. That vulnerability made the performance feel even more real. From the first note, you could tell this show was different. Ozzy's voice cracked and faded, but the crowd lifted every word. They carried the lyrics for him, turning the concert into a shared performance. It wasn't about being perfect. It was about being there. Every person in the crowd became part of the act. Painkillers were helping him stand, but not much else. Each song looked like a mountain he had to climb. Between sets, he leaned on stagehands and grabbed a stool to rest. But when the next track kicked in, he pulled himself upright. The struggle was plain, but so was the determination. Backstage, Sharon watched everything unfold. Her emotions were visible, and the camera caught her wiping away tears. To her, this was the end of a chapter they'd fought to keep open. She later said it was like watching a man come back from the dead. And for many fans, it felt just as powerful. Halfway through, something strange happened. Ozzy removed his in-ear monitor and said something quietly to a tech. It was later confirmed that he asked to let the audience hear his real, unfiltered voice. That meant no pitch help, no backing vocals, just raw, damaged sound. For the final song, he gave them everything he had left. The last notes were barely audible. His body looked like it was shutting down, but he still stood there, thanking everyone. When he said he loved them, it wasn't a line. It was the truth. His hands were trembling harder now, a mix of Parkinson's and raw emotion. It was hard to watch, but no one looked away. A stagehand later revealed something touching. After the show, Ozzy quietly left behind his silver crucifix chain. He wrapped it around the mic stand before walking off. He didn't tell anyone. It was his silent farewell. That chain had been with him for decades. One thing not shown on the broadcast was the medical support. Just off stage was a team with oxygen and pain relief on standby. A chair was always ready if he collapsed, and paramedics had been warned to prepare for a worst-case scenario. The fact that he made it through the full set amazed everyone there. Nobody expected him to finish, not even the crew. Another untold moment happened as the crowd left. Several longtime fans gathered near the edge of the stage, hoping to take a photo or touch the spot where Ozzy had stood. Security let a few of them through after the show ended. They lit candles and left messages written on shirts and posters. It turned the stage into a temporary shrine. That night wasn't about performance quality. It was about presence, legacy, and gratitude. For fans, it was a chance to say goodbye. For Ozzy, it was the closure he never thought he'd get. And for Sharon, it was a memory she knew could never be repeated. In the days after, photos of Ozzy's chain on the mic stand went viral. It became the final image of a career that spanned over 5 decades. Quiet, powerful, and deeply personal. No big speech, no encore. Just a man saying goodbye the only way he knew how: by showing up. From emergency gear to crew drama, what happened behind the scenes almost turned Ozzy's goodbye into a backstage disaster. Backstage chaos, and one final disaster. Backstage during Ozzy Osbourne's final concert didn't feel like a celebration. It felt like a battlefield. Behind the curtains, the space looked more like a medical triage unit than a rock show. Oxygen tanks were lined against the wall. Emergency kits sat open on a folding table. A nurse stood silently near the monitors, eyes fixed on Ozzy's every move. The air was thick, not just with smoke and fog, but with tension. This wasn't just another show. It was a high-risk performance from a man pushing his limits. Then came chaos. 2 crew members erupted into a heated argument over what looked like a minor issue. But to Ozzy, it was major. One of them had shifted the tray, holding his guitar picks. It was positioned just the way he liked it. Sharon Osbourne had made herself crystal clear: do not touch anything until he walks off that stage. It wasn't just about the gear. It was about control. It was about Ozzy ending this night on his own terms. The quick hands of one crew member nearly robbed him of that. As the crowd roared and lights blazed, Ozzy's voice began to give out. The last 10 minutes were brutal. His vocals dropped to a whisper. Yet, he stayed on stage, gripping the mic stand, mouthing the lyrics when his throat failed him. Backstage whispers grew louder. Can he finish? No one moved. No one dared stop him. This was his ending, and he had made that clear. On stage, a strange detail escaped most of the audience. At the base of his mic stand, a tiny metal bat was welded into the frame. A private joke. A tribute. A callback to that infamous moment when Ozzy bit the head off a bat on stage decades earlier. Quietly gleaming under the stage lights, it was a reminder of who he had been, and still was. After the final note rang out, Ozzy didn't walk off. He didn't wave. He didn't speak. He sat on an amp, completely still, staring out at the sea of screaming fans for 7 long minutes. A crew member captured it all on a handheld camera. The footage was never officially released, but those who saw it said it was the moment. No theatrics. Just raw, silent humanity. Backstage, the nurse moved in. Paramedics were stationed by the exit. There was even a quiet conversation about an emergency backup plan, just in case. They were ready. Everyone knew how serious things had become. Fortunately, none of that was needed. But the fact those plans existed said everything about the man's condition that night. One lighting technician later revealed a subtle touch Ozzy had requested: soft, warm lighting for the final song. No more wild strobes or retina-searing beams, just a gentle amber glow. He didn't want the ending to be loud. He wanted it to be warm, calm, personal. Each guitar pick in his tray was custom-made, etched with symbols from his career. One said Sabbath. Another bore the outline of a dove. These weren't random. They were quiet tributes to every chapter of his story. And then there was the heartbeat. A speaker hidden behind his amp played a low, steady thump, barely audible. Just a heartbeat. It was his sound engineer's idea. Symbolic. Personal. It said everything. No matter how broken his body was, the heart still beat. Afterward, there were no celebrations, no champagne, no hugs, just silence. A heavy silence. The kind that comes when legends say goodbye. Ozzy's body trembled, his voice cracked, and then he said something so raw, the entire stadium froze in silence. The final whisper that froze the crowd. As the final chord echoed through the arena, Ozzy Osbourne stood frozen. 12 full seconds passed. No movement, no bow, just silence. The lights still blazed. The band looked for direction, but Ozzy stayed rooted. Then, slowly, he turned to face the crowd one last time. Something passed between him and his fans, unspoken, real, and final. There was no dramatic farewell, no speech, just a frail, trembling figure soaking in thousands of faces like snapshots. His voice had cracked through the final songs, but that didn't matter. This was never about perfection. It was about presence, about showing up, broken but proud. Then came the moment that silenced the entire arena. Ozzy mouthed, "This is it." No mic, just a whisper seen, not heard. Fans close enough caught it, and instantly the energy dropped. The crowd that had just roared with decades of memories stood still, not clapping, not screaming, just holding on to that silence, afraid to let the moment go. Tears flowed freely. People who had grown up with Ozzy realized they were witnessing not just the end of a concert, but the end of a legend. On stage, he had always been larger than life. But now, he looked small, vulnerable, and human. And that made the goodbye even heavier. Backstage, emotions ran high. Sharon Osbourne waited in the wings. As Ozzy stepped down, visibly struggling to walk, he leaned into her. A nearby crew member caught the whisper. Whatever was said brought tears to Sharon's eyes, something rarely seen. In Ozzy's dressing room, a note taped to his mirror drew quiet attention. "Thank you for letting me be me, even when I didn't know who that was." No signature, but the handwriting was his. No one knew how long it had been there. But it felt like a farewell he'd written to himself. That one line said more than any speech could. It was honest, painful, and real, echoing a life filled with chaos, addiction, fame, and survival. Beneath the makeup and madness, Ozzy had never stopped searching for who he really was. Days before the concert, he made a last-minute change, adding one final performance of changes. No encore, no fire, just the truth. That moment, fans later said, felt like a confession. And when it was over, he left quietly. No press, no statement, just Ozzy and Sharon driving off in silence. The Prince of Darkness had taken his final bow. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Click on the next video popping up on your screen for more amazing content.